How's it going, everyone? And welcome to episode 30 of the Duck Boat Report here with Patrick Donnelly. I'm Brady Gardner. Patrick, how are we?
We are very much sleepwalking this morning,
Mm-hmm.
but such is the life.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all a little dead inside today after what transpired in that Patriots game yesterday, and that's probably going to dominate the show today. So be prepared for some Pats negativity. But Patrick, I'll let you start it off. What's your leadoff thought on the day?
Um, well, I'll start with some positivity. The
Ooh.
Bruins, they look like they're back on the track, and
Okay.
Patrice Bergeron has been phenomenal lately. I think he's kind of flown under the radar. We didn't really talk about him much in the other shows, but since he's come back, he's been awesome. I think it's the third most goals in December in the league. He's got 9 in the month alone. He's only 2 behind the leader for the month, Anthony Duclair in Ottawa. So yeah, I think the Bruins are back on track and they're surviving without Krug and Charlie McAvoy. And if Patrice Bergeron can keep this up, they'll be all right.
Wow. So we're kicking off the show with some positivity. I'm going to take it the other direction, Patrick. I just can't get that Patriots loss off my mind. The Pats falling 27-24 to the Dolphins yesterday. And it was, the more I think about it, the more I think that this isn't an overstatement in saying it was the worst regular season loss of the decade for the Pats. And it was the last game of the decade. They waited all the way to 2 days before we enter the 2020s to have their worst loss of the 2010s. It was just painfully inept the entire game, where the Patriots just couldn't get it done against the 5-11, 4-11 before the game, obviously, Miami Dolphins of all teams, coming into Foxborough and stealing the first round bye from the Pats for the first time in a decade. Terrible. And that's where we'll start. New England Patriots falling and losing that second seed with the Kansas City Chiefs getting the job done. They move into the second seed, get the first round bye. So for the first time since 2009, the Patriots will be playing on Wild Card Weekend next week as they host the Tennessee Titans. But we'll go through this Dolphins game first. And Miami jumped out to a 10-0 lead between the first and second quarters, including an Eric Rowe 35-yard pick six. Eric Rowe, a name that you probably remember, former Patriot, so he got his revenge a little bit there. And the Dolphins jump out to an early lead against the Pats. And I don't know, did you get to watch the game? That's my first question.
I didn't catch much of it. I listened to the last 7 minutes or so of the fourth quarter where the Patriots scored and then Miami won.
Okay, I was watching it kind of distracted. I had the stream up while I was doing something else, so I caught the highlights though, and that was kind of the biggest thing. Did you see the ball thrown by Tom Brady at least for this interception return for a touchdown?
I did not, but I
Well, it was
some
awesome.
Bruins news here.
Oh, breaking
Charlie
Bruins news.
McAvoy has been placed on injured reserve, and Jeremy Lozon has been called up from Providence.
Whoa. Breaking Bruins news, another defenseman down to the IR.
After they put Krug on IR Friday.
Wow, okay. But getting back to the Pats here, that pick six was one of the more poorly thrown balls that Brady has thrown this entire season, where he had Edelman and White on that side of the field, I believe, and it was kind of between both of them, and Rowe went untouched, the 40 yards into the end zone. Just that kind of a culmination of the entire Patriots offense on the day. Just not really able to get anything going against the Miami Dolphins defense with maybe 2 recognizable names. But to the Patriots' credit, they came back. They had a field goal from Nick Folk, Sony Michel 4-yard touchdown run, and things were all tied up at halftime. Except maybe they could have had more. There was a situation there at the end of the second quarter where it felt like if the Patriots had used their timeouts a little bit more effectively, they could have gone down and kicked a field goal. I don't know. Do you back Belichick in that situation for saying, let's just get to halftime like he often does, or do you wish they could have gone for the points there?
I didn't see it, but I saw everyone lose their minds on Twitter. I wish they had gone for it, or at least tried to. There was something like this a couple weeks ago. I don't remember which specific game, but they could have. It might have been It was the Kansas City game where they towards the end of the second quarter they started to have a little bit of a run there, and you're looking at it and it's, well, why don't we actually we have all the timeouts in the world. There's time. Why don't we try and do something here? But he did.
Yeah, it feels like they've often done that where they just decide, you know what, instead of getting silly here and trying to do something crazy and maybe turning it over by accident, let's just, get out of here, get to halftime. And I wonder, in a way, if that's almost a little bit cocky, where you're saying, we don't need the points now, we don't need to push for that, because we'll, be better in the second half, and, we'll make the adjustments, and we'll win fine. Like, it'll be great. So, you look back, and it ends up being a 3-score game, and you lose, you're like, well, maybe you should have pushed for that field goal when you had the chance. So a little bit mismanaged there, it felt like, for the Pats. They came back out, third quarter, Ryan Fitzpatrick with a 2-yard touchdown run, responded to by an Landon Roberts 38-yard touchdown pass and run from Tom Brady. The linebacker getting involved offensively, kind of showing how the Patriots had to dig pretty deep there in the playbook, bring out some trick plays that maybe they would have liked to hold on to the playoffs. But the linebacker turned fullback, catching the first touchdown pass of his career that made it 17-17 after 3. And then in the fourth, Dolphins got a field goal, and then the teams traded touchdowns. But the biggest one there, after James White caught a 13-yard touchdown pass with 3:53 left, Patriots defense could not get off the field against the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Dolphins, and Mike Gesicki caught a 5-yard touchdown pass with 24 seconds to go. Patriots couldn't make anything of their, their last couple attempts, and that's how it ended. 27-24, the first loss at home to the Dolphins for Tom Brady since 2005. First time for the Pats since 2009. Absolutely miserable day in Gillette Stadium. Patrick, your reaction to the whole game?
It's obviously disappointing. And this Patriots defense that carved up, it's just ironic. They carved up the Dolphins in week 2, and now they just laid an egg against Miami. And I think it's down the stretch of the season where you're counting on guys most, whether it's the defense, and we said Gilmore's been great individually, but as a group they've really fallen off. And yesterday, as we talk about Gilmore individually, you yourself you're pretty mad. You said you're going to watch Devontae Parker highlights to get
So yesterday, Gilmore's lined up with Parker, and he dominated that matchup when the Patriots won 43-0 in week 2, by the way, where Parker was kept completely silent. Parker 8 for 137 yards against Stephon Gilmore. We could have put Ethan covering him, and he would have had a worse day. Like, Gilmore was MIA the entire game. The whole secondary was, pedestrian. They couldn't really get a consistent pass rush. And, at least maybe the rush defense was fine. They allowed 63 rush yards on 22 attempts. So that's good. But, who do the Dolphins have running the ball? Bless you. It was just like your defense just fell apart yesterday after keeping the Bills pretty much at bay the week before. And this was kind of the whole thing, where you feel like you're making strides against the Bills. You go into the Dolphins, you wipe the floor with Miami, you move on to the first round bye, you come into the second round better than ever, and it's classic Patriots playoff football. And then this happens. And, one step forward, 2 steps back, who knows where the Patriots are right now as they go into the playoffs. Not good.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. We look at some of these score lines here. You had Sony Michel with an okay day, 74 yards, but on 18 carries. Maybe you'd like a little bit more from him. Rex Burkhead was solid with 48 yards on 6 carries. So a pretty productive 6 carries for him. Getting involved in the receiving game, not too many people. Well, actually, quite a few people, but not too much effect. You had Mohamed Sanu, James White, N'Keal Harry, and Julian Edelman all with 3 receptions. But Sanu led that group with 35 yards, so maybe it was a slightly better day for him. But if he's the passing leader, that's not a very good sign. It actually was Landon Roberts on his 1 reception for 38 yards. That was the second most receiving yards for any Patriot yesterday. Philip Dorsett had the most with a 50-yard catch. That was his only catch on 4 targets. The third most of any Patriot. Yeah, they just couldn't get anything going on offense, and you partially wonder too if this is kind of on the quarterback, because he did have some misses. He missed Sanu on, he had some separation in the end zone. Could have had 6 there, but missed him. And he was wearing some new cleats and doing some different stretches. People think that something's wrong with the lower body. Are you worried about Tom Brady's health at this point?
I'm not. I mean, it's been the same song and dance all year, whether it's the elbow or he'll be questionable with something in practice, but it's good to go. I feel like if he's good to go, he's played through enough stuff in his career. I expect the same.
Yeah, you figure he'll be able to, figure it out, and mobility has never really been his game. But, when he's missing those kind of touch passes, that's what makes you worried, because that's always been his, bread and butter, just being able to float it over and right into the breadbasket of guys, and he wasn't able to do that yesterday, so that hurt him. So what's next for the Patriots? That is the question, as they now try to move on from this devastating defeat. And by the way, credit to the Dolphins, because this was probably one of Fitzpatrick's signature wins, 320 yards for a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown in there. So, Fitzpatrick was incredible all day. Like he can be. He can get hot, but he can also get cold. He was great for the 37-year-old journeyman, getting one of the best wins of his career. And of course, Brian Flores making his return to Foxborough and perhaps cementing himself in that Dolphins organization and proving that he's the man for the job there.
Yeah, I mean,
are you worried about the Dolphins long term in this division all of a sudden? Like, up is down, down is up. I don't even know what to think.
I'm worried about the Dolphins. Talk to me when they have a quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick's not going to do it every single year.
Yeah.
If he's there next year, Josh Rosen certainly just looks like a lost cause. Maybe they get Tua. I mean, probably not. They have a decent record compared to like Cincinnati and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it worries me that we don't know who the Patriots can beat anymore, because this used to be what they do. They come in, they finish the season strong, they just knock out all these teams that are worse than them, and they move on to the playoffs with momentum. And here they are now losing to this team.
I think we're forgetting the fact that they toss up a dud every year against the Dolphins, and this time it just happened to be at home when no one was expecting it, because we always expect it to happen in Week 17 at Miami.
Yeah, and that's when the Patriots have already locked up the 1 seed, though. It's not when they're calling it a playoff game all week and then they do this. They just lost a game that they treated as a playoff game to the 5-11 Dolphins. Terrible.
It's
terrible.
December, man.
Yeah. And so now we go on to the wild card round for the first time in 10 years. We've never done that this decade, as we kind of review the 2010s here. They have never done that in the 2010s, but they will now, as they will take on the Tennessee Titans, who come in as the 6th seed. They were able to kind of squeak in as the Steelers lost yesterday, and they won, controlling their own fate there. But this Titans team has really been streaking as of late. They just they knocked around the Texans 35-14 this week, and they're coming in pretty strong. I don't know how to feel about this wildcard game for the Pats.
Considering it's the Titans, I'm not overly worried. I mean,
is this the Mariota-led Titans that came in here 2 years ago?
Or they've been a different team with Tannehill. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mike Vrabel's still the head coach, right?
Yep.
I'm not worried about Mike Vrabel outcoaching Bill Belichick.
All right. Were we worried about? Well, so you go back to Brian Flores being a former Patriots guy. Bill O'Brien already beat them earlier this year. The Texans coach, he's a former Patriots guy. All of a sudden, Belichick can't beat his former coaches, and you've got Vrabel coming in.
But you're just looking at like the Texans loss. The Texans are just so much more of a talented team than the Patriots.
Okay.
And then yesterday, there's no excuse for that. I understand, but
yeah, the Titans also won the most recent game between these teams down there in Tennessee, in probably the Patriots' most ugly loss of last season. I don't know. I feel like this could be a real, loud end to the season if the Pats go out this way.
It really
Maybe I'm overreacting here. I don't know.
I don't see it happening. I see them getting our hopes up and then just losing on the road to Kansas City or whoever they happen to face if they win.
Well, that's right. So that's kind of the road ahead, where if they win, they would definitely play against Kansas City. Because they would be the highest seed, because the 3 seed would definitely play the 2 seed in that situation. So they'd be traveling to Kansas City, who obviously beat you earlier this season. That's why they have the home field advantage, and you don't. Yeah, even though you have the same record. So you kind of barely got a win there in the AFC Championship last year. So you'd have to go to Kansas City, and then you'd probably have to go to Baltimore, and then you go to Miami for the Super Bowl against whatever juggernaut gets out of the NFC. I just don't know if I see it happening anymore for the Patriots. This is definitely the lowest I've felt about them all year. Yeah.
Welcome to the Bruins roller coaster.
It's tough times. I just don't know
They're
how to
going to
feel,
win in the blowout this week. Tom Brady's going to look vintage Tom Brady, a.k.a. 2 years ago. And you're going to be over the moon. And you're going to be like, feed me Patrick Mahomes on a silver platter.
I hope so. I really hope I feel that way. But I don't know if I see it happening. I do not.
I didn't know if I saw it happening that the Bruins would make it past the Leafs.
Well, you did that. That's true. So, wow. The tables. The turntables.
How the turntables.
It's incredible. I don't know. I can't. I don't know what to think at this point. They just lost to the Dolphins, okay? And they called it a must-win game. They looked phenomenal in their first must-win game against the Bills, and they looked absolutely dreadful in the second one against the Dolphins. You know, the Bengals scored more points against the Dolphins than you did. Like, this is just completely un-Patriots-like, which worries you. And with Tom Brady most likely looking to be on the outs, whether he's going somewhere else or retiring, we may have seen his last win as a Patriot. We may have. It's scary to think that perhaps that Dolphins loss could prove to be the nail in the coffin for the Pats. But who knows? It could make for a great story. So we'll see.
Could make for a great story.
It very well could. We go back to the defense here as I kind of look at the Titans and we wait for our caller, Ethan, to come in. He'll be calling into the Skype call via a phone, so we'll see how that goes. Are you worried at all about Derrick Henry? I noticed he just went off against the Texans, 32 carries for 211 yards and 3 touchdowns. You think he's going to be a problem for the Pats?
I think he should be, or they should at least treat him like he's going to be a problem, because it was Dion Lewis who went off in the game against them last year. But we know like Derrick Henry can pop off for over 200 yards just any given week. Like he's that talented.
Yeah, I'm not totally worried about the run game because we've seen the Patriots, pretty solid against the run recently. But I'm more worried about just the passing game because there's no real clear, star wide receiver for the Titans, which means I see probably a lot of zone coming for the Patriots where, they just try to sit back and, maybe pick off Tannehill by jumping the routes or, I don't know if there's a this guy. I don't know if that's totally evident. Ethan's here?
Ethan is on the line. I'm trying to get up. There we go. Speakerphone. Ethan.
Speakerphone. What is up? How's it going?
Oh, Ethan Fuller joining us. Expert hotline coming in from Patrick's phone into the Skype call. Phenomenal technology. Ethan, how are we today?
We are good. I woke up super late, and that's okay. Winter break is awesome.
That's the winter break for you. So, Ethan, what do you have for us today? We've been talking a whole lot of Patriots, and I have a feeling that you've got something along similar lines.
I don't really know what you guys have been talking about so far, but I'm actually not that concerned about the offense based on just the last game. I actually didn't think it was terrible, although Brady looked a little rough around the edges. But yeah, the defense is just now we have a defensive question mark right before the playoffs is not what I wanted to see.
Exactly, and that was my this has kind of been my reoccurring concern every loss that they've had. I feel like it's on the defense, and they have to carry this team and they have to be perfect if the Patriots want to go somewhere.
Yeah, and like the fact that it was the Dolphins, especially after in week 3 when your defense absolutely obliterated them, and I get that the quarterback situation was a little bit different then, but still that type of turnaround when you're hoping to get better throughout the season is kind of scary.
Yeah, not good at all. I think that 43 points was the most you put up all season the last time you faced the Dolphins. And you couldn't even get to 30 against them this time. I guess they haven't got to 30 for or against anyone here in recent weeks. So I guess what's next is the question, Ethan. What do you see being the future for this Patriots team in the playoffs?
Well, just playing a wild card game is kind of weird. I didn't realize it's the first time in 10 years that we're going to have to play a wild card game.
Yep.
Which is crazy on its own. I'm not too worried about the wild card game because I don't think, and whatever wild card team we could face, I don't think poses that much of a challenge. But now, if you're on the road against either of Kansas City or Baltimore, those are both intimidating places to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of scares me, especially now that we have this defensive question mark against Kansas City and Baltimore are still two of the most prolific offenses in the league. And now we have to kind of worry about this defense while also hoping that the offense somehow comes together like it hasn't most of the season. Definitely scarier than many past years.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like they won't even have the element of weather on their side, where the Patriots sometimes, thrive on beating these warmer weather teams when they have to come up north and play in Gillette. Seems like it's going to be like 40s, maybe even 50s next weekend when the Titans come in to Foxborough. So, we'll see how that ends up. Patrick, do you have any final thoughts on the Patriots before we move along here?
No, you guys have kind of covered it all. Sorry I couldn't contribute as much. I just didn't catch any of the game yesterday.
No worries at all. Hopefully, we will have more positive Patriots news to talk about next week. All right, so Ethan, the Celtics, I don't know if we've given them a ton of coverage recently, but it seems like they're playing pretty good basketball. They've won, their last 5 in a row?
They just lost one to the Raptors.
Oh, it was 5 in a row, and then they lost the Raptors.
5-game winning streak, yeah.
All right, what's your take on the state of the Seas?
So, outside of this dud to the Raptors, where the Raptors did not have Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol, or Norman Powell, so basically, that's most of your offense gone, and they crushed the Celtics. But I'm actually not super bummed about that game. I think every good team is just going to throw up a dud every once in a while. It happens. It's sports. You have an off night. I'm all in on Tatum and Brown. It's not getting much better than what they've been doing recently outside of this Raptors game. And now you have Marcus Smart coming back too. So I think once those roles kind of work out between Smart and Hayward now both being back, I think they're going to be fine. They'll keep cruising.
Yeah, it seems like the sky's the limit for the Celtics team. You mentioned that loss to Toronto, 113-97 at home. That was the third game in 4 days for the Seas, so maybe you give them a little bit of a excuse for that, because they'd already beaten the Raptors on Christmas Day, 118-102, their first win in Toronto for 5 years, something crazy. And then on Friday, the 27th, they beat the Cavaliers at home, 129-17. Talk about Brown and Tatum. They've been kind of carrying the load a little bit. Brown put up a career-high 34 against Cleveland, and Tatum put up a career-high 39 last week against the Hornets. So they're kind of playing better than we've ever seen them play. But do you think it's sustainable?
I do, because what's always been a trend we've seen with Jaylen Brown is that he gets better as the season goes on, and we're seeing that right now. And if he can I was looking at some stats, and he's one of the best spot-up shooters in the league, which I think is a big development, that he doesn't need to handle the ball and kind of control the ball as much, and he can catch and shoot and make threes like he's been doing. And Tatum obviously is finally finding his rhythm inside. He just struggled to finish early in the year, and now he's finishing well. And neither of those two have injury concerns. Hopefully I didn't just jinx that, but yeah, I don't see how it doesn't go anywhere but up for those two.
All right. Well, looking at the next week ahead, the Celtics travel to Charlotte to play the Hornets once again before coming back home against the Hawks, and then going back on the road, taking on the Bulls. Seems like a pretty favorable stretch for the Seas. What do you see for these next few games, either of you? Ethan?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was taking up too much space, but
no, go for it. Go.
Okay. So
reading Patrick's facial expressions, he doesn't have much to add.
Well, okay, so this part of the schedule, is pretty much a cakewalk. These are some of the worst teams in the league up until you play at the Sixers on January 9th, and then it starts to get tougher. So, yeah, up until January 9th, they should win all of these games. There should be an easy chance. Maybe they try and make up some ground on Milwaukee for the 1 seed, although I don't see the Bucks slowing down anytime soon. Or maybe they break away from the Heat, who they're currently technically behind the Heat. they've just played less games. But hopefully this is a chance for the Celtics to really lock in being being a contender, because these should not be games they lose.
Yeah, and they've definitely got the momentum on their side. So yeah, I'm thinking the Celtics are, there's a chance that they could go on a bit of a streak here to start 2020. We shall see. But Ethan, thank you for taking us through the Celtics coverage there. Do you have any final notes before you leave us today?
I don't think so. The Timberwolves finally snapped their 11-game losing streak.
Oh, man.
And they did it by playing one of their worst games of basketball the entire season.
Oh, great.
And,
wow.
And then they followed it up. So Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins were both out in the last game, and they played the Cavaliers without Kevin Love. That's probably the single worst game of NBA basketball I've ever watched in my life. There was no offense for either team. I don't think the Timberwolves eclipsed 90 points, which in today's NBA is embarrassing. And yeah, so Timberwolves in a sad state right now. If you needed your daily dose of Timberwolves, there it is.
Alrighty, I don't know how many people did, but thanks for giving that.
Ethan, quickly, can we get your top 10 Celtics for the decade?
Whoa!
Oh, man. Okay, I don't know if this is going to be in order, but if I'm rifling off 10 right now, it's got to be Pierce, Garnett, let's see, IT, of course, Tatum and Brown, Smart, so that gets me to 6, Avery Bradley, 7, we need some bigs. I hope Brandon Bass is making this list, because he really shouldn't. Horford.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's 8. Does Kyrie make it? I don't know.
No.
Brady's shaking his head.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. Oh, Rondo, obviously, so 9. And
Jay
then
Crowder?
Who?
Jay Crowder, does he crack your list?
Ooh, Crowder could make that.
Brandon Bass?
I don't think makes it.
Oh.
I mean, we know how I feel about Kelly Olynyk, but I could see Crowder maybe sneaking in there.
Interesting. It's been
that's for sure, because no one was around a long time. Like everyone spans with.
I've gone through 3 different stages. What was that, Ethan?
What did you say, Brady? You cut out.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm just saying that we've kind of had a weird decade for the Celtics where they've gone through kind of 3 stages, like the end of the 2008 championship team kind of fizzling out with Pierce and Garnett eventually being traded, and then, the Bridgies, as they're referred to, with, the Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, that whole era, Avery Bradley even in there, and now this kind of, new leadership of the Celtics with Brown and Tatum and a bit of a youth movement here. It seems like you can kind of divide up the Celtics decade like that.
Yeah, and it's very much dependent on the. I mean, it obviously makes sense, but it's dependent on the Garnett trade and the Nets picks. Like, there's the pre-trade era, there's the trade just happened, but you don't get the effects right away, and now we're in the post-Nets picks all being transferred, and you're seeing it pay off.
Yeah.
Would you go with Doc for your coach?
Brad, just because he had it longer. If Doc had, I don't know, won a ring or something, I probably would have gone Doc. It's close for sure, but I'm going Brad just because he rebuilt the Celtics with very little before the picks. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, Ethan, thank you very much for joining us today. Always appreciate your input, finding time in your day to join us on the show. We'll see you next year, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, next decade. Thanks so much for having me. It's always fun.
Alrighty. Ethan Fuller joining us there through Patrick's phone. Thanks for setting that up, Patrick. Always nice to have Ethan come in. So, moving along. The Boston Bruins, as you referred to, Patrick, kind of finding their way a little bit here. They've run off 3 wins in a row after losing 8 of their previous 9. So things are a little bit moving in the right direction for the Bees.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't catch again much of the game last night, just between running around from BU and stuff and all the holidays. But I saw the game on Friday, and it was a great effort. And I mean, like, they spent the majority of the game, it felt like, in their own end, but Halak was great, especially in the first period. Rask looked solid last night from what I saw. And in the game on Friday at Buffalo, I sent you guys the video of that goal where David Pastrnak, two-way legend, just picks Jimmy Vesey's pocket. Remember when Jimmy Vesey said no to the Bruins? And then they have this beautiful tic-tac goal, and ended up scoring. That was the third goal, I believe, if not the second. Either way, it was a shutout. Didn't matter. But this morning, some positive news. Torrey Krug is practicing. He's still on IR. I'm not sure. When they placed him on Friday, I'm not sure if it was retroactive to someday over the roster freeze or if it was started then, but it has to be a minimum of a week. So we'll see what his status is for the coming days.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just impressed with the way that the Bruins have kind of responded from adversity here, because we knew that they would hit a rut, and they did, and it was then about how can they turn it around. And we saw, before Christmas, they were able to, I guess, get a pretty big win there, 7-3 over the Capitals. But the way that they've now, run off 2 in a row against the Sabres team that's kind of fighting for their lives right now, pretty big wins for the Bruins. And I think the whole, getting back to finding their stride can be represented by Jake DeBrusk, who last night, he's been really struggling as of late. He gets benched for pretty much all of the first period. He only got 2 minutes of ice time, I think, not even, something like that. But then he came back in the third period, 2 power play goals within 18 seconds, and looks like he's playing with a lot more confidence now, so that move might have worked out.
Yeah, and it's, we've said this before, we've talked about this off air before, where Jake DeBrusk is one of the most streaky players on the Bruins. When he's hot, few guys that are as dangerous as him, but when he's cold, it's a lot of, right, what are you doing for me? It's when he's not scoring, what can you bring to the table? And we've seen David Pastrnak try and find that balance and learn that way this year, where teams have been taking him away and targeting him, maybe not necessarily in a dirty way, but he's a targeted player where the attention is going to be focused on. So, right, so how can you create? How can you defend that way? And it's about Jake DeBrusk. That's what Cassie's talking about, learning to play when you're not scoring.
Exactly. And then the goaltending still has been rock solid for the Bees. I think it's great how, Rask and Halak have been able to platoon here as of late. I think there are a few teams in the NHL who have that luxury. So, good to see them continuing at their current form.
Yeah, and these 2 wins against Buffalo are huge because it's their divisional wins. You buried Buffalo in the standings. They were second in the division what felt like almost a week ago. Probably not. That's an exaggeration, but it felt like just like that. They were second in the division. All of a sudden, they've fallen down to 7th in the wild card race. Meanwhile, Toronto, who's won 9 of 10, I believe, or 9 of 11, something like that, is second in the division. You still have 10 points on them, but they've been on fire.
Yeah, it's good that the Bees were able to kind of tread water when they were struggling, and now you hope that they can get back on the upswing here. But yeah, all is well with the Bruins and Celtics. Those teams doing great. It's just the Patriots that are kind of letting down Boston sports right now. And maybe even the Red Sox, they haven't really done that much in the last week, and neither have the Revs. So we'll kind of skip over those two and move into some national sports. I do want to get back to a little bit more decade analysis towards the end, Patrick. So hopefully we can get some early thoughts for that. As we're only 24 hours, no, like 30 hours, 48, something like that, away from 2020.
Like 6 hours.
How many?
36 hours and 14 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds right.
12 o'clock and then 12 more hours and then 24 hours.
Smart guy. Big math guy. Okay. Looking at the NFL, the playoff picture has been determined. With the, I'll just run through it here quickly. The Ravens and the Chiefs getting the byes in the AFC, as we already talked about. And then it'll be Titans against Patriots, that being the 6th seed and the 3rd seed, respectively. And then the 5th seed, Bills, going into Houston to play the 4th seed, Texans. What do you think about the Bills and the Texans? Who wins that one?
I'm intrigued by that. I mean,
yeah. Both 10-6, by the way.
It's at Houston, correct?
Yep.
All right, well. I don't know, Josh Allen's first taste of playoff experience on the road. Or no, they made the wild card game last year, did they not?
Maybe 2 years ago. Let me do some quick Googling. Continue your point.
Well, if it is, either way, Josh Allen, whether it's his first or second game or not of playoff experience, it's on the road against an incredible Houston team at least offensively, whether it's Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, their run game's always a little spotty. And then when healthy, the defense is fine. Obviously, they went out J.J. Watt. They traded Clowney. But it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, I'd assume, because Houston fans seem to be ready for some success finally. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a tough test for the Bills.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Allen might be a little starstruck going in there, and like you said, Houston fans pretty hungry to get some success in the playoffs. I don't know if I see the Bills getting out of this one, but you never know. That defense comes up big, frustrates Watson and Hopkins. I don't know how many secondary options there really are there for the Texans. So we'll see, but I think that could be the game of the week potentially. Over in the NFC, you've got the 49ers and the Packers getting the first and second seeds. 49ers pulling it out with a nail-biter win last night against the Seahawks. Pretty much, getting that win by just 1 yard if you saw it, not even a yard, where it looked like Jacob Hollister, to name drop a former Patriot, kind of had the ball and was trying to spin over to the goal line and was stopped, like inches away from breaking the plane. So 49ers held on to the first seed, and that means that the Seahawks will settle for the fifth seed, being demoted to a wild card team. They'll take on the Eagles, who are the fourth seed, squeaking over the Cowboys to win the NFC East. And then it'll be the Vikings traveling to visit the Saints, that being the sixth seed. Sixth seed against the third seed. So Vikings at Saints, Seahawks at Eagles. What do you have for those two games?
Can you repeat them? I'm sorry.
Vikings going to the Saints, Seahawks going to the Eagles.
I don't know. I think the Seahawks got it against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Especially you look at that record in that division, and it's like how is it possible that one of these teams has to go on the road wild card weekend? But that's just the way seeding goes, I guess. The Eagles, I don't believe in them at all. I think they're one of the biggest poser teams in the league. And I still don't believe Carson Wentz is the guy. They should have kept Nick Foles. That's for another day. But yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to take that. It might be close. Who knows? But I full faith in the Seahawks to get it done. And then Vikings, it's a nice little rematch of a couple years ago, where whoever, I think it was Diggs with the touchdown. Marshawn Lattimore got burned, but I mean, it's on the road. It's in New Orleans. Drew Brees he's been fine since coming back, and I mean he just broke the record. The fans are hungry. Drew Brees wants to get one more at least before he's done. I think the Saints will take it.
All right, yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think it'll be the favored teams in both of them. I don't know if I see a total upset potential. Seahawks 11-5 going to visit the Eagles 9-7. You have to think that the Seahawks will be able to handle business there, especially maybe with a bit of a chip on their shoulder after losing out barely to the 49ers for the division. So and then the Vikings, I just don't know if Cousins and the Vikings have what it takes. They looked like a solid team at one point there, but I think they've been kind of floundering as of late. I think the Saints will be able to take care of them. So that Bills-Texans game might be looking to be the best of the weekend. 2 10-6 teams going at it. Not sure who's going to win that one, but it'll be fun to watch. So that's the NFL for you. Patrick, do you have any other national sports news?
Last night it was an incredible rant from John Tortorella.
Yes, that was great.
About the NHL's replay system. If you get a chance, you can probably find it anywhere on Twitter. Colin Campbell, the director of hockey ops, Gregory Campbell's dad, by the way, for the NHL, called his comments unprofessional and unacceptable.
Wow.
Which is ironic because Colin Campbell's been one of the big whipping boys of the league offices ever since he was director of player safety. And I don't know, he was 100% right. And like he said, the league's dealing with this. So yeah, are you dealing with it to fix the issue? Because this has been an ongoing issue, and it's been magnified this year by how bad it's been. But I digress. International news, though.
Oh.
USA Hockey at the World Juniors. They're 2-1. I believe they play today.
Yep. 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on NHL Network against
host nation Czech Republic.
Against the Czech Republic. Trevor Zegras, BU's own, has been putting on a show. He's a wizard.
He's been incredible. And it makes me almost think, like, is this something he brings to BU? Because as BU students, as BU hockey journalists, it's kind of exciting to see him doing so well.
They got him on the wing, too.
Yeah, and that's interesting, too. This is not a BU hockey podcast, but you wonder if Zegers could do some damage on the wing.
Well, he's only won like 42% of his faceoffs at center with BU.
Interesting. So maybe they're figuring something out there over in the Czech Republic in international play. He's been incredible, though.
They're also stacked at center. Team USA is. They got Shane Pinto, obviously, who's been amazing in the tournament. Jack Drury, Harvard. Alex Turcotte. I think he's playing juniors. I'm not totally sure. And John Beecher. John Beecher's been forced to the wing. Curtis Hall, fourth line center. I mean, they're pretty loaded at center. So obviously, someone's gonna have to play wing.
Yeah, and he started on the fourth line too, all the way up now to the second. Still playing alongside Artie Kaliev. Is that his name?
Yeah, Arthur Kaliev and Jack Drury. And Drury's been great as Harvard's top center. And I mean, when you have as gifted as a goal scorer as Arthur Kaliev, it's going to be pretty tough not to have success. Yeah. I mean, he was talked up as a top 10 talent last year and fell for whatever reason to the second round. But yeah, that line seems to have found the connection.
Yeah, so that's been fun to watch, and we'll keep an eye on that with World Juniors. Always one of the more fun tournaments to watch during the year. But for now, Patrick, I want to talk about, to close the show, just all decade things for Boston sports, because it has truly been an incredible decade for these Boston teams. We already had Ethan do a top 10 Celtics of the decade. I think he probably did that better than either of us could have. So now I'd like to go through the other teams. Do you have maybe a top 10 list of Bruins that you would pick out for this decade?
I do.
Okay. I'll see if I agree or not.
So I'm going to go Patrice Bergeron.
Go.
Zdeno Chara. Brad Marchand. David Pastrnak. I'm at 5 now.
Yep. No, that was 4, wasn't it?
That is 4, actually. So I'm going to go David Krejci. That's 5.
Yeah.
Tuukka Rask. 7. This is where it gets interesting.
Wait, that's 6.
That's 6?
Yeah.
I bet I can't count. All right, so Tuukka Rask 6.
Yeah.
Milan Lucic 7. Tim Thomas 8.
Okay.
Nathan Horton 9. And then this is 10 gets interesting. Who squeaks in? I'm gonna go with Torrey Krug.
I was gonna say him too, actually.
I was between Torrey Krug, Seidenberg, and Boychuk.
Yeah, I have my list up here. We kind of did it as line combinations and all that, but we got kind of deep into it. What was that?
I picked from my lines.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm looking at too for mine. And as I looked at the defense there, looking for that 10th guy, I wasn't sure, but I think Krug has had quite an impact, even on both ends of the ice. And I'm glad to see that Tim Thomas made the list for you for your top 10.
I mean, like, I'm not denying, like, what he did was incredible. It's stop holding your breath. It's probably never going to happen again, or not anytime soon.
Right.
I mean, although Tuukka Rask did have a statistically better run last year. But hey, it's none of my business. But my coach, I would go with Claude Julien. Honorable mentions, Louis Eriksson, one of the more underrated guys. I mean, when healthy, he was perfectly fine. He was productive.
Yeah.
Good way guy. I think the guys I talked about, Seidenberg, Boychuk, can get tossed in. Chris Kelly, as far as honorable mentions go.
Mm-hmm. So moving into Red Sox, my top 10 list, maybe not in order, but I would go definitely David Ortiz. Got to have Pedroia there too, even though it's been kind of ugly here recent years. That's 2. I think Bogaerts makes that list. People forget that he was also on that 2013 championship team, so one of the few Sox that has been around for both. I'm going to also go with, let's see, Mike Napoli, I think, gets in there. I think he was the best first baseman we've had this decade.
Okay.
And he stuck around, too, and there were a lot of guys there towards the middle of the decade, especially when it got ugly, that, he was there. So I'll add him in for the 4th. I'm going to go Gomes as well, kind of a similar guy to Napoli. What?
Okay.
Johnny Gomes. Patrick's frozen on us. Oh,
You
Hello.
froze too.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying Johnny Gomes played left field there for 2 years. He makes my list. Maybe wouldn't have made an impact anywhere else, but I think he was good enough for that World Series year. Kind of embodied what that team was about. Mookie Betts, of course. I almost forgot to add him. Jared Saltalamacchia, your best catcher of the decade, I believe. Christian Vasquez getting close, but not there just yet. So that's 7. And then I got to get into the pitchers. John Lester. Finishing off his time in Boston. Still wish they'd resigned him, but I think he gets on the list. And, Chris Sale, just when he's there, he's kind of like Louis Erickson, where you talk about totally good when he's there, but just had some injury issues. I put Chris Sale on the list. And then I think I go Koji Uehara with my 10th pick. Leaving out some big names in there. I had my, list of players that I would have put on the team. I didn't have it down to 10, so I kind of did that on the fly. You think about David Price, but I don't know, not consistent enough for me. Rick Porcello, similar, had a Cy Young this decade. But again, was he really that kind of player? Probably not. Even Will Middlebrooks was good in his time here, but didn't stick around all that long. I thought he was your best third baseman of the decade, but Devers seems to be blossoming into something.
No
Even
way.
Jacoby Ellsbury, solid.
Kevin Youkilis, if you're not putting him at first base, beats out Will Middlebrooks for third base.
Okay. You think he beats out Napoli at first?
Absolutely.
I don't remember, end of his career, Kevin Youkilis. I know he was, great late 2000s, but I don't remember what he really gave you early 2010s.
I might be messing up the timeline here.
I don't know. I also considered Kimbrel. Craig Kimbrel was, lights out regular season, but his struggles in the postseason, especially in 2018, that playoff run where they kind of won in spite of him, that kind of takes him off the list for me.
I guess you're right about Youkilis. 3 seasons in the 2010s, or 2.5.
Yeah.
But he gave you 19 home runs, 17 home runs, and then before he was traded to the White Sox, 4 home runs in 33 games. Or no, that was his age, 42 games. But whatever, I'll get into my top 10. If that's
okay.
All right.
You have
so David Ortiz.
Well, so why don't you just say the ones that you disagree with me on? Because I feel like you're going to repeat a lot of names.
To be quite honest, I disagree with you on Gomes. I'd put Ellsbury in there.
Okay.
I guess looking at the numbers for Youkilis, you've swayed me on Napoli, but can you run through it again?
Why don't you just go? Just go ahead.
I apologize.
No, it's good.
So I go Ortiz, Betts. They have to put Pedroia there. And then I think Koji. Xander Bogaerts, that's 5. Ellsbury, 6. We're in no particular order at this point. Lester, Sale. Oh, it's killing me not to put Clay Buchholz in there. Brock Holt.
Wow. Why?
Heart and soul of the team for like the last 3 or 4 years.
He was around for the dark ages of like 2016.
He's been through it all, and there was that year he played every position and he was productive. He made the All-Star game, whether it was a joke or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Where am I at? 8? Salty. I want to say Devers, but he hasn't been there long enough. So I'm gonna have to say, I don't know. I think Shane Victorino squeaks in.
Oh wow. Okay. Wasn't he here for 1 year?
That's true. So maybe not. I don't know. Maybe to spite you, I'll say no. I'll throw Napoli in there. I guess he's been around. So I'll throw Napoli in there.
Okay. Interesting. Well, while you were reading that down, I came up with my solid top 10 for the Patriots, so I don't have to be, thinking too much about it on the fly. But I would definitely, for the Patriots, you got to go Tom Brady, got to go Julian Edelman, got to go Gronk. those are the big three, probably the three best players of the decade. After that, I don't know what the ranking really is.
Best player of the decade.
Well, yes, of course.
I think you're forgetting a guy who automatically has to be in there.
Who?
Matthew Slater.
Okay. He wasn't in my top 10.
Automatically has to be in there.
I also had James White in there. Big, especially playoff performer, but just a consistent guy. Devin McCourty hasn't done a ton lately, but again, that's kind of recency bias. Over the course of this decade, he's been one of their best defensive players, along with Dante Hightower, who I think has been incredible for them throughout his career, even dealing with some injury issues. Vince Wilfork is in there. Didn't win nearly as much as he should have, but made it to some Super Bowls, was dominant in the middle for a long time, and a big locker room guy as well. Rob Ninkovich, huge in their Super Bowl winning seasons there. Danny Amendola I put in, who, was he a third wide receiver at best when he was here, but just clutch in the postseason, exactly what they needed. And then I have Gerard Mayo being the 10th. You may have convinced me on Slater. I think I'd probably put Slater instead of Mayo, but then you're saying Hightower over Mayo, and maybe if Mayo had played with a different team, he would have been better because Hightower's now playing, with some pretty solid linebackers that maybe Mayo didn't have the luxury of playing with.
Hightower is Super Bowl 51.
Yeah, just because of that? Okay.
I think so. That's the strip sack.
I don't think Mayo won while he was here. He went to however many AFC championships, but I don't think he ever had a Super Bowl. Or a Super Bowl win, rather. Other guys that barely missed out for me.
Rings.
Yeah. I had Pat Chung, who has had a couple stints with the Pats in this decade, and has been solid for them back at safety, but not better than McCourty for sure. Steven Gostowski, I hate to admit it, but it's rare that you get a kicker to stick around for an entire decade plus. He's done 15 years for them now, so he's been real solid for them. Maybe not 15 years, but he's been consistent enough to keep the position, and at a kicker that's pretty good. Malcolm Butler, people remember one play, but he also had a year. What?
We're not still in the top 10 now, are we?
No. These are barely missing out. I said Butler because he did have that 1 year where he was your top corner the year after the Super Bowl win. And, if he's not benched in the Super Bowl, maybe you go back-to-back there. But we don't need to get into that. But, yeah, Malcolm Butler is good for that 1 year. Did have a bit of a falling out towards the end, so he doesn't make my list. Same with Trey Flowers. Good for a year or so, one of the more dominating defensive players that they've had. But, gone after a year of being productive. It's kind of the Patriot way, but it doesn't get you in the all-decade team, in my opinion. Any changes you'd make?
I agree with pretty much everything you said. But, I mean, I don't think it's unfortunate he doesn't make the cut just because of how many other guys have been so good, but I think LeGarrette Blount has to be in the conversation.
Wow. Yeah, maybe. Came to the Pats twice, right?
Yeah, and he was especially productive in the last few years with that second stint.
Yeah.
Obviously, James
I would take him on the team right now. He's one of those guys where I would take him on the team right now. So maybe that says something.
He's still doing that goal line role with Detroit. He's got, last I checked his stats was like a week ago. He's got around 450 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Wow.
Which is, obviously the yards are declining, but the touchdowns are still there. Let me check his stats real quick right now.
A couple of the guys that I kind of left out here in cornerbacks, Darrelle Revis, who was only here for 1 year, but was as shut down as they've had all decade. And then Stephon Gilmore. Maybe, I want to omit him based on what happened yesterday, getting absolutely torched. But, he's in All-Pro last year, setting up to be the same this year, if not Defensive Player of the Year. One of their best defensive players that they've had probably in the entire Brady Belichick era, 2000s to now, not just this decade. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm mistaken, actually. I think LeGarrette Blount did call it quits. The stats I was looking at were from last year with Detroit.
Oh, alrighty. So maybe he doesn't make your top 10.
He's currently a free agent. He hasn't officially retired.
Interesting.
33 years old. Maybe he's got something left in the tank, Brady.
You never know. Okay.
He can be your fullback.
The last team for a top 10 that I want to do is, the Revs. Wen, Jermaine Jones, Teal Bunbury, Chris Tierney, AJ Soares, Jose Gonçalves, Andrew Farrell, and Matt Reese. That's my Revs top 10 for all 4 Revs fans out there.
You cut out before you said Jermaine Jones, I believe was the name. So did you name anyone before that?
Yes. Before Jermaine Jones, I had Charlie Davies, Kellen Rowe, and Lee Wen.
Okay.
Who may have been 3 of your best players, actually. So, maybe not Rowe, but Rowe is back.
One of the few household names I knew from the Revs.
Jermaine Jones?
No, Lee Wen.
Oh, yeah. Well, he and Jones were the 2 guys to kind of, make it on the international level for the Revs, or at least with Team USA. So, they're kind of more well-known, I guess. But we'll see. Maybe this will change a lot. They've got some good players coming in here. Start of the 2020s. Who knows? So, final kind of analysis on the decade as we get closer to the hour mark here. Just running through the championships we've had in Boston sports because it has been an incredible decade with that. So, Bruins got us started 2011, beating the Canucks in the Stanley Cup Finals in Game 7, their most recent title. Celtics did not have one. Their last title was 2008. But the Patriots more than made up for that. They had 3 between 2014 over the Seahawks, 2016 over the Falcons, the infamous 28-3 game. That Seahawks win, of course, being the Malcolm Butler interception game. And then 2018, they beat the Rams in the lowest scoring Super Bowl in NFL history, I believe. Red Sox had 2, 2013 over the Cardinals, the first Fenway Park World Series win for the Patriots in 100 years, which was pretty cool. And that was the whole Boston Strong team. 2018, they beat the Dodgers 4-1 in the World Series, the most dominant Red Sox team in history. It's been a good decade, Patrick.
It has.
Can you pick any one of those championships that meant the most? I could.
Super Bowl 51.
Super Bowl 51. Why is that?
I mean, when's the next, as I talked about Tim Thomas, when's the next time we're going to see something like that? Like,
oh, that was our good friend Jay calling in.
Like, I was heartbroken at halftime. I just went and took a nap during halftime. I was mad. I was angry. I was tired. And I was like, screw this. I'm not coming back. And I'm just sitting there on my phone on the couch in the other room. And it's midway through the third quarter and I hear people getting excited. And all of a sudden my spirit's back. I jumped ship.
Okay. I have a completely different top 3. That doesn't even make my top 3. My third most significant.
I didn't know you were asking for top 3. I thought you were just talking about which one was the best.
So that's your number 1 then. I've got 3 for you.
Well, it depends. We're talking about the game itself. That's the best.
Oh, the game. I thought I was going with what meant the most. That was the best game, for sure.
Okay. So
in terms of most significant, I have the top 3. Number 3 being the Bruins, winning in 2011, the first title for them in 39 years. That was huge for the Bees. And obviously, it's been pretty tough for them to get back to that level. They've gone to the Stanley Cup Finals twice since then and have been knocked out in the late stages. Game 6 against the Blackhawks, Game 7 against the Blues. So that makes the 2011 championship seem all the more impressive. My second one, I would go, this is tricky. I think 2014 Patriots over the Seahawks. Maybe I'm a little bit.
I mean, you were there.
That one. I was in attendance, but it was kind of just the reestablishment of the Patriots, dynasty, where they hadn't won one in 10 years, which by their standards was a long time, and they'd been in so many AFC championships. They'd gone to Super Bowls as, the undefeated team trying to finish off the first undefeated season since, the Dolphins in the 80s or whatever it was. They've had the opportunities there in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and they couldn't get it done. These 2 losses to the Giants there, some other losses in the AFC Championship game. So to be able to go back, beat the Seahawks in dramatic fashion there in Arizona 2014, probably their biggest win of the decade, and we've seen that they've been able to build off of it with, a championship every other year since then. And then my number 1 most significant World Series, or not World Series, it is the World Series, championship win, the 2013 World Series. I spoiled it there. But just based on, what it meant to the city, I think at that point, there was just something different about that team where it wasn't like money bought that team where you see now in baseball where it's, the Astros, they have it's kind of the most money in baseball and, they're there every year and they have good trash cans to clang on to. Um, and then you get, the Yankees. They're always going to be competitive because they throw a ton of money at it. The Dodgers, like there are these big money teams, and I feel like the 2013 Red Sox weren't really that. They were just a group of guys that got hot right at the right time, and probably as tight knit a team as we've ever seen in Boston sports. So that was a huge win, 2013. It was their, third title of the millennium, so it wasn't anything new at that point. But just in terms of its significance to the overall city, I have to put that one on top.
I agree with number one.
Yeah.
I'm still putting the Patriots over the Falcons instead of the Seahawks. That's going at number 3 for me.
Okay.
Just how historic it was and how incredible it was. And then Bruins got to be number 2 for me. Just personally, it's helped get me into hockey. I don't think I'd be like you see me. I don't think I'd be the nut I am without it. So yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I ever get interested in hockey without that championship.
Wow. 2011. Yeah, 11 years old. Interesting. Alrighty. Well, Patrick, I think that's about it. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Two more questions. Who's your manager for your all-decade Red Sox?
Oh boy. I have a name, but I don't think I want to say it.
I have a name, and I don't want to say it either.
John Farrell?
John Farrell. Has to be.
It's tough because it just, it was so ugly, but then it was so good, but then it was so ugly.
Cora doesn't have the longevity. That's what's killing him.
Mm-hmm. And Francona wasn't even, right? He was gone by, I don't know when.
It was 2011. Francona was gone, I believe.
Yeah, so he wasn't around long enough either. Bobby Valentine was, dreadful. But Farrell won you a championship, and he stuck with it.
2012 Francona was.
What was that?
I think it must have been 2012 because 2013 was Bobby Valentine. That was the 100 years of Fenway. And then John Farrell comes in. No, 2013 was the championship. 2012 was the 100th year, right?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, 2012 was the 100th year. I'm all over the place. So it was 2011 for Francona.
Okay. So here's a question for you. Claude Julien or Bruce Cassidy for the decade? Easy answer. Easy. Who am I?
Yeah.
Claude, of course. He won the only cup. He's the only one that's been able to do it. At most all-time wins in Bruins history.
Yeah, Claude. Stanley Cup, a trip to the finals, President's Trophy.
Yeah. Again, got ugly at the end, but you got to remember what he was able to do. How about the Patriots? Who's your coach of the decade?
Oh, I have no idea.
How about your coach of the millennium?
Wow. We're going to be, or not us, but people are going to be talking about this at 2999. Who was the coach of millennium? It's got to be Bill Belichick. No matter what.
At that point.
It's still Bill Belichick. The coach of the, I don't know, the century. It's still Bill Belichick.
Crazy. What a time to be alive in Boston sports, Patrick. Even if the Patriots don't win a Super Bowl this year, we've still got the most championships, I believe, of any city since 2000, I think. Right?
Yeah.
No one can be close.
Nope.
I don't think so.
New York has the Yankees, what, twice?
I don't know, but I don't want to Google it all right now. It's going to be too much effort.
True.
I think that's it for today, Patrick.
I agree.
We've almost hit the 65-minute mark, so I think we'll call it there. But as always, everyone, we thank you so much for joining us here in the middle of winter. Always nice to be able to debrief on a long year in Boston sports, a year that we have covered weekly through this podcast and the former Beantown Banter podcast. Patrick, before I wrap up, favorite moment of the year in Boston sports, if you could pick one.
Of the year.
I mean, I think I have mine pretty obvious.
Being at Game 7 against the Leafs.
Oh, that was actually.
It was either that or being at Game 2. Game 2 was my first ever game. It was a blowout.
You know.
What?
Eh,
What'd you say?
Well, I said I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right. Like we, walked out of the building that game with 100% belief that was, the Bruins were going to get it done. The road was paved for them, and we don't need to talk about what happened in the month after. But having been in the building for that, it was probably unlike any other sports experience we've ever had.
Yeah, just being there for the playoffs in general. I was going to go with either that or like being at Game 2. It was my first ever playoff game. The place was a firecracker. It was a blowout. It was crazy. I think just in general, I'll combine those two games.
My biggest, probably biggest game of the calendar year would have to be the Patriots Super Bowl. The only title won by Boston sports in this calendar year. What?
Snooze fest.
It was a snooze fest, but just the significance that it meant. Belichick getting back on track after, so much controversy, benching Malcolm Butler in the previous Super Bowl. He comes back and he wins it with the best defensive effort, arguably of his entire career. I think that was just a huge win. One of the best Super Bowl wins of their time together for the Patriots, for sure. And, I think that was the biggest game of the decade. But that Maple Leafs Game 7 was pretty huge, too. And if that other Game 7 had gone any differently, we would definitely be talking about that one as well. What?
I was about to mute you, but thank God you stopped talking about it.
What a way to end. Well, anyways, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this entire year, a full year of podcast. And I'm surprised that Patrick isn't tired of me just yet. But we go on, and we appreciate you sticking with us for all these shows. Any last words in 2019, Patrick?
I still want a right winger.
All right, well, we'll see on that one. The problems will go on into 2020, that's for sure. But that's it for today's show, everyone. Thank you so much for listening today and this year. And as always, we will see you next time.